Mike, when you look at this offense in the first half of the season, number one scoring offense in the NFL, number one total offense in the NFL, over the last 6-7 weeks, some offensive struggles, particularly in the red zone. When you look at how you want this offense to look, especially over the final 3 games, where do you see the biggest improvement as far as how you guys can handle red zone opportunities and be able to capitalize on those better going forward?
Well, I think like anything, the starting point really offensively is always ball distribution. You really want to get the ball distributed throughout your perimeter players. That's the focus each and every week. We have a goal, how many times we want the ball distributed, and I'm talking about number of rushes versus completions. And you just take that through the situations. And I just think like anything, when you're seeing more, just soft coverage and so forth, just the patience and that you have to have, as completions. Because, I think like anything, you have a philosophy in every situation. And, our red zone philosophy is touchdown or check down in particular, when we're talking about the passing game. So, it's always the little things, the details that sometimes go, in phases. But, our ball distribution, particularly the last 2 weeks, has been right where we need it to be. But we just got to get the ball pushed up in the seams and maybe create a little more space, so for the opportunities with our perimeter guys. So, because, I think we've been about 10, 11 broken tackles the last 2 weeks. And you always want to be, right at that or above that each week because, that's definitely part of the production of this offense.
Speaking of the distribution to your perimeter players, and obviously this team has noticed much more cover 2, much more 2 safety play as far as the second half of the season is concerned. Are there things that this offense can do better when it comes to beating cover 2, whether it be finding more explosive plays down the field to the perimeter players? What do you all feel like can be better as far as trying to beat cover 2, what you've seen much more during the second half of the year?
Well, it's just like anything. You have your lineman assignment, the scheme, and then obviously the execution. We're definitely at the time of year, December is, execution's everything right now. So, there's, the plays that we've been running, the defenses we've been going against, there's really no surprises. There's always, variations and tilts and emphasis, particularly to matchups and so forth. So, and when and that's why it's always the details, and that's why December football is so fun and so challenging because it really comes down to who's playing the better technique and the fundamentals and executing their particular schemes or the family of schemes that they live in. But cover 2 is, you have different types of cover 2, and that's something that obviously you go into each game knowing, whether it's traditional cover 2 or more of a Tampa cover 2, how they run the Mike linebackers, so things like that. So we have the schemes that fit the challenge each coverage scheme. So that's something that I think our players do an excellent job and recognize that and play for it. But we just got to be a little tighter, more exact, and when we're attacking cover 2 and hit those voids and create the matchups and get the ball distributed. Like anything, it always starts with protection and getting the ball out on time and get in a route running, being tied up to the time clock of the protection of the quarterback.
You say execution, and by the way, I appreciate you saying that because a lot of people kind of gloss over that. I see what you're doing, Coach. I covered Tom Landry for 10 years, and you are going into your Tom Landry bag of tricks. I know he would do this in December, and he would do this on a lot of road games in particular. He would make sure they get their basics down on execution. And he said, if we got a good defense, we're going to ride that defense. And so for a lot of people who wonder if you're being too conservative, let's say on some play calling or some clock management, or even on, knowing that your offense can get chunk plays if they were executing properly. They don't, you've said it. I heard you say it in some of the press conferences. This is why we're doing it this way. Are you kind of basically going back to old school saying, let's get our basics down first before we go all out and do the things we were doing when we were rolling with six victories in a row?
Well, I think the biggest thing, in the game of football, it's really the same, and it's just really how you get to it. It's always about the basics, because especially in the biggest game of the year, it's going to come down to the fundamentals and the ability to, as a coaching staff, to put the players in big play opportunities in position, and obviously and they execute it. So we're always working on that, and and I think as far as how you play, each game, every single time you line up and compete. Every game is different. It takes on an identity, and there's strengths and weaknesses. There's an ebb and flow to each and every game, and those are the things that I think our guys do a really good job of paying attention to, and I think you're seeing our team really come together and hit the target for being a complementary football. Because complementary football wins in playoff and championship football. That's just the facts. It's very difficult to win a championship when your team is tilted one way or the other, whether it's to your offense or to your defense. So I think our guys, especially you can see it in our locker room, the connectiveness that these guys have. They're a tight group. It's a group that's very high in work ethic. So, but our ability to continue to grow the complementary attitude and philosophy is going to be a big strength for us moving forward.
Yeah, and I think they talk about it all the time. Those guys talking about how it's like a real team, all sides of the ball. They all love each other. They all hang out together. They do a lot of different things together. And I noticed after the game, they talked about the big bet between Tank Lawrence and Dak Prescott, takeaways versus touchdowns. I thought that was nice added value. What do you think about the competition on that?
Love the competition. I mean, it's all about competing, and you're talking about two guys right there that are as competitive as anybody that I've ever worked with. So it's healthy, it's good. I think it's just you're seeing guys push each other, within the environment and the culture, particularly our locker room, and I think it's awesome.
Coach, when you look at this offense finally going forward, last couple things for you here, with Kellen Moore in respect to his being the offensive coordinator, how do you help him as a week-to-week basis goes on when it comes to game planning, but more importantly, when it seems like things may be struggling offensively? Are there things that you do extra to try and not only help not just him, but this entire offensive staff come up with ideas and those kinds of things to be able to help each other as far as the offense is concerned?
Well, I think like anything, I mean, you have a process, and it's something that you establish, when you first get together as a coaching staff. And I think clearly from last year to this year, I think both staffs have, the continuity has definitely been heightened, and that comes in. We're no different than the players. We have to develop and get better as we go through it. So, and I think really when you go through spots, the biggest thing is the trust your process. Maybe have a little more conversation about the areas you need to emphasize. And and particularly with Kellen and I, most of our conversations are really about, the play calling, the ebb and flow of the game, that, the anticipation of, how the guy you're competing against, Jack Del Rio this week, how do you think he's going to play? It's second time in 3 weeks. So it's more the particulars of how we want to call a game, go into the game. And because, schematically, I think our whole staff and, led by Kellen, I think they do an excellent job, as far as going through the menus of the things that we can use each and every week, and and being creative and diverse and staying on top of yourself, Scott, and all those things that go into a healthy game plan.
You ever get tempted, Coach? You won a Super Bowl calling your own plays. You ever get tempted to say, Kellen, this is what we need to do, man?
I think we're out of time, guys.
Well, good answer.
Kellen does an excellent job. I think it's just like anything in this business. My job, particularly for everybody, from my position, is to make sure Kellen, Dan, and John, Fossil, have the environment and the resources to be successful. That's really the way I look at it. So it's just the way we're structured.